Hello, my dear friends. If you enjoy this story, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your support, and now let's begin.
I stood by the door with a suitcase and looked at the table. There was a single sheet of paper lying on it. White, straight, cold. An ordinary office sheet, printed 3 days earlier in the conference room at work. I had deliberately stayed after my shift, waited until everyone left, closed the blinds, connected to the printer, and pressed print as calmly as if I were preparing another report. I did not want our home printer to touch this. I did not want this paper to appear in our apartment before its time. I did not want it to carry the smell of our home. It was supposed to arrive here only at the very last moment. Like a sentence. Ryan was asleep in the bedroom. I could hear his breathing through the half-open door, even, calm, deep. The breathing of a man who is not worried about anything. The breathing of a man with a clear conscience. Or of a man who had long forgotten what that even was. I did not wake him. I did not walk over to the bed. I did not look at his face one last time. I did not fix the blanket, the way I had done almost every morning for 4 years. I simply took the handle of my suitcase. Checked the pocket of my coat. The keys to my new apartment were there. My phone was on silent. The documents were in my bag. Everything was ready. I left. The door closed with a quiet click, the very sound that sometimes ends not arguments, not scandals, and not shouting. But an entire life. My name is Kate. I am 32 years old. And 3 months ago, I found out about my husband's affair at 2 in the morning, lying beside him in the same bed while he was asleep. I will tell you how it happened. That night was ordinary. Terribly ordinary. That was what later made me angriest of all. No premonitions. No strange look over dinner. No pause in the conversation that could have warned me, Kate, pay attention, your life is about to split in half. We watched something on television. Some series we had both been watching for a long time, more out of habit than genuine interest. Ryan laughed in all the right places, ate popcorn straight from the bowl, and commented on the plot several times as if there were nothing heavier in the world than a badly written script. Then he yawned, said he was tired, kissed me on the temple, and fell asleep 5 minutes later. As always. He knew how to fall asleep instantly. That had always annoyed me a little. I could lie awake for hours, turning over work tasks, conversations, weekend plans, and grocery lists in my head. And he simply closed his eyes and disappeared from the world. I was still lying there, staring at the ceiling and listening to the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. His phone was lying on the nightstand on his side. It lit up. Just a notification. A brief flash in the dark. He never put his phone on silent. One more habit that annoyed me. I was not going to look. I really was not. From the very beginning, we had open phones. No passwords from each other. No secret folders. None of those strange games where people live together but guard the screen of their phone like a national border. We called it trust. Our rule. I simply reached over to turn off the screen, and saw the name. Ashley. From his work. I knew that Ashley. I had seen her at last year's company party. Tall blonde, loud laugh, red lipstick, a habit of touching people on the elbow when she spoke. Back then, she had hugged Ryan a little longer than necessary, but I had not paid attention. I was not jealous. Or maybe I was just too confident in myself. The text on the screen was partly visible. The first words were, "I miss you. Tomorrow, can you stay late after?" Then the screen went dark. I lay there without moving. For several seconds. Maybe a minute. I do not know. Sometimes, in moments like that, time stops being time. It becomes thick and sticky, like cold honey. Ryan was breathing beside me, evenly, calmly. Then I took his phone. My fingers were not trembling. That is the strange part. In movies, people's hands shake, their breathing breaks, the phone nearly falls to the floor. Nothing was shaking in me. I was too calm. Frighteningly calm. The phone was not locked. I opened the conversation. I read for a long time. Probably 20 minutes. Although the first 30 seconds would have been enough. Everything was there. Not just flirting. Not stupid jokes. Not some accidental emotional slip that could later be explained away by exhaustion, alcohol, or I didn't understand what I was doing. There was a separate life there. 4 months of messages. Photos I will not describe. Plans for evenings when he was supposedly working late. Weekends he spent with friends. Jokes only the two of them understood. Familiar phrases. Hearts. Times. Places. The name of a hotel I recognized immediately. We had once driven past that hotel together. Ryan had turned his head, looked at the beautiful lighting by the entrance, and said, "Nice place. We should have dinner there sometime." I had even agreed. How calmly he said it. How easily. I read and waited somewhere inside myself for a reaction. Tears. A scream. The urge to wake him right then and throw the phone against the wall. The urge to hit him on the shoulder, drag him out of sleep, force him to look me in the eyes. But none of that came. What came was a strange, almost clinical clarity. Like when you cannot find an error in a spreadsheet for a long time. You stare, check formulas, recalculate rows, doubt yourself. And then suddenly you see it. The mistake had been there the whole time. You had simply not been looking in that direction. I placed the phone back on the nightstand. Face down. Lay back down. Closed my eyes. Ryan slept beside me and knew nothing. And that was when I made my decision. Quietly. Without drama. The way the most important decisions are made. I would not tell him now. I would not make a scene. I would not cry on his shoulder. I would not give him the chance to justify himself, twist his way out, say that everything was complicated, that he was confused, that it meant nothing. I would not let him steal my moment of understanding from me. I would leave. But first, I would prepare. I call the next 3 months the strangest job of my life. Because it was work. Every day, coming home with a smile. Cooking dinner. Asking how his day went. Listening to his answers. Watching movies with him. Saying good night. Sometimes even saying, "I love you," because habit is stronger than pride, and the role had to be played to the end. And not giving a single sign. Not one. On the second day after that night, he asked me over breakfast. "Are you okay? You look a little tired." I was spreading butter on toast. The knife moved over it perfectly smoothly. "Deadline at work," I answered. "Everything is fine." He nodded. Took a sip of coffee. Then said, "Maybe we should go somewhere this weekend? We haven't gone anywhere in a long time." I looked at him. At his face. At the familiar little crease between his eyebrows. At the lips that had written to another woman just yesterday that they missed her. And I smiled. "Sure," I said. We went to the lake on Saturday. The day was cold but sunny. The wind pulled my hair across my face, and the water was dark, almost steel-colored. Ryan photographed me there. He laughed, fixed my hair, told me I was beautiful, asked me to turn a little to the left. I looked at him through the lens and thought only one thing. You did the same thing with her. Maybe on the very Saturday when you told me you had to stay late at work. Maybe you fixed her hair the exact same way. Smiled the exact same way. Chose the best frame the exact same way. I smiled for the camera. The photo turned out well. In it, I look calm and happy. People believe photographs far too often. During those 3 months, I did many things. I opened a separate bank account, in my name only. I moved part of the savings there. The part one had earned before our marriage. I did not take more than that. I did not take revenge with money. I was not trying to destroy him financially. I did not need revenge. I needed freedom. I found an apartment. Small, on the 3rd floor, in a good neighborhood, with windows overlooking a courtyard and an old chestnut tree across the way. The first time I came to view it, the agent kept talking about the renovation, the transport links, and the good price. But I stood by the window and thought, here, I will be able to breathe. I signed the lease for 3 months in advance. Calmly, methodically, without rushing. Like a person who knows what she is doing. I bought a coffee machine. New bed linen. 2 plates. 1 wine glass. Why 1? Because I wanted to tell myself the truth, at least in the little things. Right now, I am alone. And that is not a tragedy. The hardest part was at night. Not because I cried. I hardly cried at all during those months. The tears seemed frozen somewhere inside me, waiting for their time. The hard part was lying beside him. Feeling his warmth. Hearing his breathing. Remembering how he laughed in the kitchen, how he held me in his sleep, how he left a dirty mug by the sink. And at the same time, remembering the messages. One night in February, he hugged me in his sleep. Just like that. Moved closer, put his hand on my stomach, buried his face in my shoulder. The way he always had. I lay in his arms with my eyes open and thought. You do not deserve to know what I am feeling right now. You do not deserve my pain. Because my pain is the last real thing left between us. And I will not give you even that. There were moments when I almost doubted myself. I would see him at dinner, tired, wearing his favorite blue sweater, watching the news. I would hear him laugh at some stupid commercial. I would watch him automatically clear my plate after dinner because he knew I hated doing dishes late at night. And I would think, what if I am wrong? What if it is another Ashley? What if it is not what I think? Then I would remember the photos on his phone. Remember the dates. Remember the hotel. And the doubts would disappear. There was one evening in March that was harder than all the others. We were sitting on the couch. It was raining outside. Ryan put his head on my shoulder and said, You know, Kate, I was thinking about this recently. You and I have a good life. A really good life. I did not answer right away. I watched the television, where someone was buying a house by the ocean and admiring the large windows. Yes, I finally said. Good. I'm glad we're together, he added. I nodded. Put my hand on his knee. Automatically. Out of 4 years of habit. And thought. Do you know what together means, Ryan? Do you really know? That night, I did not sleep until 4 in the morning. Not from pain. From anger. At last, anger came. Real, hot, hard anger. The kind that does not cry, but clenches its teeth. Anger at him, for the lies. For the ease with which he said, I love you, and I'm glad we're together, while knowing perfectly well where he had spent last Friday. For coming home, kissing me on the cheek, and asking what was for dinner as if nothing were happening. For allowing me to be a caring wife in a story where he had long stopped being an honest husband. And anger at myself. For believing for 4 years. For not checking. For not looking in that direction. For being convenient. For mistaking exhaustion for workload. Distance for stress. Late returns for responsibility. I sat in the dark kitchen and, for the first time in 3 months, allowed myself to hate. Not shout. Not break things. Just hate. And strangely enough, it helped. By April, everything was ready. The apartment, furnished, with my things that I had moved little by little. Piece by piece. On days when he was at work. First the books. Then winter clothes. Then documents I supposedly needed for the office. He noticed nothing. And that, too, was an answer. The account, with enough money to depend on no one for several months. The documents, arranged in a folder, inside the suitcase. The lawyer, found through a colleague, a quiet woman with short hair who listened carefully and said, "You want a divorce without direct contact?" Yes. That is possible. I left her office and stepped out into the street, and for the first time in a long while, I felt that the world was not collapsing. It was simply rearranging itself. One thing remained. That sheet of paper. I thought for a long time about what to write. At first, I wanted to write a lot. To explain. To describe what I had felt all those months. To quote his messages. To ask all the questions I had not asked. When did it begin? Why? What in me was not enough? When did you decide that lying to me was allowed? Did you ever look at me and feel ashamed? But then I understood, he did not deserve my words. He did not deserve explanations. He did not deserve my voice, not even in writing. So there was only one thing on that sheet. A printout. One screenshot from his conversation with Ashley. The very first one I had seen that night. With the date. With the name. With the text. No signature. No goodbye. No, you know why. Just a screenshot. Let him remember on his own. On that final morning, I got up at 6. Ryan was asleep. I dressed in the bathroom. Quietly. Without turning on the light. From memory. I stepped into the hallway. Took the suitcase. It had been standing by the door for 2 days already. Ryan had not asked once why it was there. Maybe he thought it was things for the dry cleaner. Maybe he simply was not looking. I went into the kitchen. Placed the sheet on the table. Exactly in the center. I looked at our apartment. At the gray walls we had painted together during the first year. At the bookshelf where my books and his stood mixed together. At the cracked mug he never allowed me to throw away. At the photo from the lake on the refrigerator, the very one where he was fixing my hair in the wind. A good photo. I left it there. Let it hang. Let him look at it and think. The door closed with a quiet click. I went down in the elevator. On the first floor, Mrs. Harper, our neighbor, was going out with her little dog. She smiled at me. Early trip? Yes, I answered. Very early. She wished me a good day. I almost laughed. Outside, it was an April morning. Cool. With the smell of coffee from the cafe on the corner. With the first people on the empty sidewalk. With a city that did not yet know my life had just changed its address. I walked to the car and waited. Waited for it to hit me. Tears. Pain. The desire to go back. The desire to go upstairs again, open the door, wake him up, and still make him listen. It did not hit me. There was only one feeling. Lightness. A strange, almost indecent lightness of a person who has finally put down a suitcase she had carried for too long. I drove to the new apartment. Went up to the 3rd floor. Opened the door. Inside, it smelled of fresh paint and something of my own. Still unfamiliar, but already mine. I set the suitcase against the wall. Turned on the coffee machine, new, bought that week, mine alone. Sat by the window with a cup. Watched the street waking up. A man in a gray jacket walking a Labrador. A woman in a red scarf carrying a paper bag with pastries. The sun slowly crawling across the windows of the building opposite. The phone rang at 8:30. Ryan. I looked at his name on the screen. For a long time. Until the call ended. Then I wrote one message. I left. The lawyer will contact you next week. Do not call. I put the phone down. Finished my coffee. He called 7 more times that morning. I did not answer once. Then a message came. Kate, please. I need to explain. This is not what you think. Call me. I read it. I did not reply. Because it is exactly what I think, Ryan. I saw it with my own eyes. I read it with my own eyes. 4 months of messages is not what you think. It is exactly that. By lunch, the messages became fewer. By evening, one last message. I'm sorry. 2 words. After 4 years. After 4 months of lies. 2 words. I read it and thought, too little, too late. I deleted the conversation. I did not block his number. Let him see that the messages are delivered. Let him see that I read and remain silent. That is more honest than blocking. A silence that says everything. 3 months have passed since that April morning. The divorce is proceeding quietly. Through lawyers. Without meetings. I live in my apartment with the smell of fresh paint that has already become familiar. I work. I meet my friends. I discovered a coffee shop in the next block where they make the best latte I have ever tasted. I bought a large plant, even though I used to think everything alive died in my care. It stands by the window and is still holding on. Maybe we both are. The tears came 2 weeks after I left. At night. Unexpectedly. Because of some stupid song on the radio. I sat on the floor beside the bed and cried as if my body had finally understood what my mind had understood much earlier. I cried not only for Ryan. I cried for the former version of myself. For the woman who had believed. For the apartment with gray walls. For Sunday breakfasts. For the habit of buying his favorite yogurt. For the future I had built in my head, which turned out not to be a home, but a set. Then I slept. Got up in the morning. Made coffee. Opened the window. And realized I was still alive. People ask. Don't you regret not talking to him? Not giving him a chance to explain? Not wanting to hear his side? No. I do not regret it. Because some things do not need an explanation. 4 months of lies is not a mistake. It is not an accident. It is a decision he made every day. Every morning, he woke up beside me and made that decision again. Every time he told me, I love you. Every time he stayed late at work. Every time he came home and looked me in the eyes. An explanation does not cancel a choice. Sometimes the loudest answer is silence and a closed door. One sheet of paper on the table. And the lightness of a person who has finally put down someone else's suitcase. And now tell me, my dear listeners. Was there ever a moment in your life when you found out something important, and decided not to say it out loud, but simply leave? And what do you think? Does a person who betrayed someone deserve explanations from the one they betrayed? Or is silence sometimes the only dignified ending? Write in the comments. I am truly interested to know whose side you will take in this story.